1,000 years ago, inside the Fatimid capital of Cairo. In front of the Sultan of the Burid dynasty was standing a man named Ibn al-Haytham, one of the greatest scientists who ever lived. His face trembling with fear, his heart beating faster and faster, thinking about the punishment he would be given due to his failure of completing the task given by the Khalif himself.
10 years of prison,
said Al-Hakim. The science behind how we perceive light and see objects around us was not as detailed in the 10th century as we know today. There were different theories, but every theory had a lot of drawbacks. When I say that, I mean a lot. But among all of them, there were only two theories that really stood out. The first, emission theory by Euclid, which basically meant that our eyes emitted something known as eye beams, and those beams would touch the objects and we would see them. And the second one was the intromission theory by Aristotle, that basically stated that objects emitted rays which entered the observer's eye and therefore they perceived the object. Both the theories explain many phenomena but failed to assert dominance over the other. Two great philosophers, but two completely contradicting theories. A question that arose at the time was, could there be any person who would combine those theories and successfully get rid of many of their drawbacks? Ibn al-Haytham, also known as Al-Hasan or Al-Hazan, the man who we will talk about today, was born in Basra, Iraq, which was then under the rule of the Burid dynasty. He was Muslim by faith and believed that if learning the truth is anyone's goal, is to make himself an enemy of all that he reads, and applying his mind to the core and margins of its content, attack it from every side. Little did he know he was setting the rules of science, as said by Neil deGrasse Tyson himself.
Ibn al-Haytham was the first person ever to set down the rules of science. He created an error-correcting mechanism, a systematic and relentless way to sift out misconceptions in our thinking.
Al-Hasan went to formulate the scientific method itself, the base for every science we can think of. What is the scientific method? It basically meant that we had to combine observations, experiments, and rational arguments to support any theory. Knowledge exists potentially in the human soul, like a seed in the soil. By learning, the potential becomes actual. A problem that confused a lot of people of its time was the problem of the moon appearing larger near the horizon than it does when higher up in the sky. Al-Hasan offered an explanation of the moon illusion. Through additional works by different people, based on Ibn al-Haytham's explanation, the moon illusion came to be accepted officially as a psychological phenomenon in the 17th century. Speaking of the moon, fun fact, every crater you see on the moon has its own unique name. For example, Aitken, Tycho, Herschel, etc. Of course named after some of the finest astrophysicists and scientists. And if we look closely near the eastern limb of the moon's near side, we find the Al-Hasan crater. Why? Let's look at his achievements. The world's first scientist, father of the modern optics, father of the scientific method. All of these achievements are a result of his phenomenal book named The Book of Optics. He wrote it in the span of 10 years. And here's the interesting part. It was written under house arrest. It was 1011 AD. Cairo, under the rule of Fatimid dynasty, was facing problems due to the flooding of River Nile. As Al-Hassan claimed to be able to regulate the flooding of the Nile, he was invited by Fatimid Khalif for a hydraulic project at Aswan. However, Ibn al-Haytham was forced to concede the impracticality of the project. After he proved unable to fulfill this task, he faced the anger of the ruler and is said to have been forced into hiding or supposedly house arrest until the Caliph's death in 1021. What many saw as the downfall of a great student of science just came out to be a turning point for Al-Hassan's life.
"10 years of prison,"
said Al-Hakim. 1011 to 1021 was the time span in which he wrote Kitab al-Manazir, which earned him the title the father of modern optics. Most of his inspiration came from the Egyptian mathematician Ptolemy. In the medieval era, he got the closest to the real explanation of how we see. For many people of his time, he already solved the problem of how we perceive light, and also contributed in the invention of camera. Yes, it was Al-Hassan who laid the foundation of the pinhole camera, through which he was the one who successfully proved his theory of working of the human eye. This book also proved the efficiency of his scientific method. It was later translated into Latin and was read by Europe and inspired hundreds of other scientists, and one of them being Johannes Kepler, who formulated the planetary motion of solar system. Although we see an indirect influence of Al-Hassan on the discovery of gravity, some claim that Al-Hassan already wrote many books describing gravity, which cannot be proved wrong as he wrote over 200 books, of which only 50 survived. Although I can't describe his each and every achievement, but here's a list of contributions. Yeah, even that. One important takeaway from this video must be, although medieval ages were dark for Europe, it was a golden era of science for Islam, the Arab, and the Asian lands.